Well, hello. The mask is back, okay? And you might need to call me Mystic Mask because in my last card I did 12 and 0 on picks. I don't care what the decision on the main event was. Urseg deserved 3-2, rounds 2, 3, and 4. I don't care what the arguments are. Oh, well, Urseg landed a few overhands every now and again. Yeah, well, Urseg was landing the jab at will, so either way, 12 and 0 on picks, pretty much perfect. I got all the great underdogs. I'm just Mystic Mask, and hopefully we'll keep it up on this card. I mean, I'm riding high on that one, but who knows? Maybe this card will get freaking 0 and 12, okay? But let's just jump into it. We got Vanessa Demopoulos and Talita Alankar. I think that I wasn't impressed with Talita in her last showing. I expected more from her. And she's actually not that young either, let's be honest. Like, if we're thinking to pick her, because she's the young, hungrier prospect, she's not really that young anyway. She's kind of coming into this quite late. And Vanessa Demopoulos, even though, yes, a lot of the wins have been robberies, that's one thing that I'm willing to trust anyways in women's MMA. If you're getting robbery wins, you're probably somehow favored in the judges' eyes. You're probably just doing more. You're probably just being busier, looking to do something that is appealing to the judges. And Vanessa Demopoulos also, she's also been in the UFC much longer. She has that experience, and she's fought a much higher level competition, if you ask me. Um, and yes, there's the idea that maybe Talita does actually get the win and she does actually get the rightful decision, but on these fights where it's like there's one person who's consistently had sort of decisions go her way, I'm gonna trust in that. So I'm gonna have to say a decision. When they're both kind of mediocre and Vanessa has the experience edge, it's kind of a Sam Hughes situation. When they're both kind of you kind of gotta trust the one that's more gritty, the one that has more tools, and the one who's fought more, not only more people, but more better opposition. So I'm gonna say decision there. Close one, obviously. It could, women's MMA has gotten more entertaining lately, though. So it could change, but I feel like it's gonna go back to the normal decision ways for a little bit. And then we have Uran Satil Baldiev. Sati Baldiev and Martin Bidet. A lot of people are picking Uran, and listen, he could just off of pure light heavyweight athleticism just starch Martin Bidet because he is much lighter and he has the reach and he has the same height. So and he has a good record even. Like he's beating decent guys on the LFA. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check it's LFA. Uh, if I can freaking figure this out, yeah. LFA, and Martin Baudet, he's mostly fighting these guys that are either out of the UFC or these guys that are like on their way out. Most of these guys are gone. Jake Collier, Andrei Arlovsky, Lucas Brersky, I don't even know if he's still in there. Um, and so that's not a great look, but what we have to understand is when you're fighting someone that's like 40 pounds heavier than you, you're bound to lose some of that pop on your punches, for sure. So obviously speed is very important, and Uran is definitely going to have that. But I could just see Martin Buday clinching him up to a split decision here. I could see it like a Lucas Bresky fight, where it's like Lucas Bresky also weighed like way less, but he weighed 20 pounds less. It wasn't like 40. And so this is also kind of deadly for Uran, seeing as he's 40 pounds lighter. So this could be one of the first Martin Bidet KOs, actually. Who knows? But I have to trust in Martin Bidet, especially since it's like a 24 hours notice for Uran. Victor Henry, Pedro Falcao. Um, Pedro is okay, but I feel like Victor Henry, his boxing is actually really decent. Against a guy like Charles Jourdain, he was mostly having trouble in the like standing exchanges because he was just shorter, and that was the biggest issue there. But in the actual boxing, he was doing quite well still there. And then in his last fight before that, I guess it was, I'm pretty sure it was Rani Yaya. Yeah, it was like really putting on a clinic. He pretty much dominated him every facet of the game. And I understand that he's extremely old, but I'm gonna have to trust in Victor Henry here. I just think that his hands are very clean, very slick, and if you don't have like a decent enough jujitsu game, takedown game to sort of mix things up like a Charles Jourdain did, and you don't have that reach to make things and that height as well to make things kind of awkward for Victor Henry, I think he's going to put on a similar performance to the Rani Yaya one. So I'm going to say a decision, going kind of safe on this card, you could see, but not a lot of underdogs I'm really trusting in here. Lomolo book me. I honestly think that this is not going to be as one-sided as people think. I understand completely Nunes is terrible, but one thing we have to consider here is Loma Lokbukmi has not been fighting. Um, and even when she is, like, I expect her to get the KO. She's like this Rafael Fiziev for a women's MMA, where it's like you expect her to get the KO because she's putting so much force into these punches and kicks, and then she's just not even like putting a dent in some of these girls. So I'm gonna have to say a decision. Actually, lots of decisions here. Don't get me wrong, I could totally see a finish, seeing as Nunes has gotten KO'd quite a couple of times at this point. But I mean, and for women's MMA, that's not great, especially strawweight. But I just don't think that you can't trust KOs in women's MMA. If there was one that you could trust, it would be Loma. But uh, I don't know. Until I see her get a KO in recent UFC and as well as her layoff from not fighting for a while, I'm gonna have to say it's a decision. I'm gonna have to say a decision for now. And then Reese McKee versus Daniel Frunza. I'm gonna have to go with Daniel Frunza. I could totally see um, a win for Reese McKee here since he actually looked really decent against Kenny Nezuchukwu, and actually that's aging really, really well. But I think Daniel Frunza, the thing with him is he's able to mix things up more. He's able to be more well-rounded, and I know I've said that before, but this guy is more so than any of these other people I've mentioned before. Well-rounded. He's the most well-rounded guy on this card so far. There's definitely better up on the higher levels of the card, but I feel like Reese McKee, he's not got the best chin. He's not been chinned recently, but he's not got the greatest chin, and it's kind of he's also kind of got that sort of Sam Patterson look, where he's got that long neck, and so it's kind of an easy target. Usually these long neck guys, they not only are they kind of chinny, but even if they're not, they're an easy target. And I feel like Daniel Frenza is going to be able to land consistently and then eventually get to some ground and pound shots and be devastating from there. I think that this is going to be really hard for Daniel Frenza early on, considering that he has to get past the height and reach and all this length, since Reese McKee is actually a decent striker. But I just think that as the fight goes on, it's going to be hard for Reese McKee. So I'm going to just say a round 3 KO on the ground due to maybe elbows. And then Diana Belbita versus Dion Barboza. I'm going to have to go with Dion Barboza. I basically just watching Diana Belbita against Karolina Kowalkiewicz getting like 30-27 pretty clearly. In hindsight is a terrible look since then Karolina Kowalkiewicz, in her next two fights looks really bad. And that's no disrespect to her, but it's the truth. And, even against Molly McCann getting armbarred like that, it's just not good. It's not a great look. So I'm going to say a decision. This one could very well be a submission. I see a lot of Typology fans picking that. And, they might be very rightful in doing that. It might be a very good pick, the submission, but I'm going pretty safe on this card. I gotta go with decisions on these women's MMA fights until it's like a real consistent thing where women's MMA is finishes. Although maybe when it starts getting to be a finish thing, maybe then it's gonna be a decision thing when I start picking finishes. So you don't know. Women's MMA is really too unpredictable. And then we have Robert Valentin versus Torres Finney. Um, I know a lot of people are going to be surprised here, but I'm actually going to go with Robert Valentin. I think that Torres Finney, he's good, but I think what we've all been recognizing, even Dana White, is that he's not really proving himself against the highest level guys. And I understand that not a lot of these contender series guys are, but against Ryan, what was it, Ryan Loader? Yeah, for Robert Valentin, that was like an actually really underrated guy going into that. We just didn't know how good Ryan Loder was. And I think that Valentin actually, um, he's a lot more vicious in what he's doing, and I think that he can find some kind of a scramble where he could actually get a dominant position. And then I'm actually going to say that a second round submission early on in the second round. I think that he kind of blows his gas tank a little bit early, just going for punches, and then he realizes that he needs to calm himself after losing the second half of that round, and then Torres Finney goes for the takedown, gets it, but then maybe he goes for a back take, sort of like Armin versus Charles, and then he slips off the top, and then Valentin gets the back, something like that. So I'm gonna say round two submission for Robert Valentin actually, and then we have Ode Osborne versus Luis Gruely. I don't. I was actually considering picking Ode Osborne, but I don't like how he looked going into the scales, going into the weigh-ins, and I know that that's not really a thing that you should really go to. You should look at fight tape and all that, and I do, but for this card, not so much because, well, one, I've been more film studying for the next card coming up, the UFC 314, the big one, but more so than that, Ode Osborne, it's just like, I think we know what we're getting with him. He has some fast shots on the feet, especially early on, but as far as who he's facing, he sometimes he'll get outstruck by even at moments Ronaldo Rodriguez. Now, granted, he should have won that fight, and he actually was winning in the feet, and he dropped him badly. But I just think that he could be doing a lot more. I think that when it comes to guys with talent and explosivity, like a Manel Cap, he just shows levels. And I think that again, when it comes to a close decision where there's a bigger guy, at least in density, it shows with the sort of. But then again, he does have 73-inch reach, and I know that that's like, oh no, bro, that doesn't matter. But it's like, actually, I don't know. Like, the thing is about this fight is the dude Lewis. Yeah, he could take down Ode Osborne and just make easy work of him from there, but he has such a reach disadvantage. That's like a 9-inch reach disadvantage. I'm actually going to pick Ode Osborne to piece him up on the feet. I think that he's going to have a really hard time getting to Ode Osborne. And I think that their UFC's keeping him because they know, you know, this guy actually showed some decent levels against Ronaldo Rodriguez, at least on the feet. And we know that he's there for an exciting scrap. So I'm actually going to say a close decision where people are going to say robbery like Basil Hafez, JDM because ground control time. So I'm actually going to go with another underdog here. And then we have Brad Tavares. I actually don't know who's the underdog. Okay, yeah, that makes sense actually. Yeah, I think that Brad Tavares is just gonna get. Am I gonna say KO? I'm gonna say decision. I know I'm picking lots of decisions on this card, but I'm gonna have to say decision because I think that Brad Tavares. The thing about him is he has very underrated takedown defense, and I know that people are looking at this sort of like an Edmund Shabazian fight where, oh my gosh, he's gonna hurt Gerald Meerschaert, and then he goes for it, and then he messes up the finish. The thing is, Edmund Shabazian has a much less of a gas tank. He's explosive, but he doesn't have as much of a gas tank. But Brad Tavares, he actually paces himself really well. He's not really particularly special anywhere, but he's good enough to get wins over uh, a withered Chris Weidman. But Chris Weidman went on to finish with a double eye poke a Bruno Silva. So it just shows how good that win is. The goat Bruno Silva. But they're practically the same age. But Brad Tavares has a three-day youth advantage, and now I mean I'm not looking at that, but ultimately I think on the feet Gerald Meerschaert really isn't that impressive. Um, I'm surprised that he actually was able to look decent against Rainer de Ritter, but I don't rate Rainer de Ritter's stand-up that highly, I'm going to be honest. So I'm going to have to say a decision for Brad Tavares. I think he's going to let kick out range pretty well, not allow Jerry Mearshart to get any solid takedowns, and then he's just going to maybe pop the jab, pop the 1-2, simple stuff, maybe some hooks. Decision. And then we have Chang Ho Lee versus Cartevios Ramios. This is a really good underdog pick, actually. Oh man. This is really, really hard. I'm gonna lean towards Cortevios Ramios. I think. I think. It's hard. I think that Chang Ho Lee looked way more built in the weigh-ins. He looked way more dense, similar to another guy I mentioned previously. I forgot who, but I was mentioning the density. And for Chang Ho Lee, he does look more dense, even though he's actually weighing in at 136, and Ramios is 139. They're about the same height actually on the weigh-ins, even though it doesn't really suggest that. It says 5'4" and 5'8". Yes, Cortavios is shorter, but not by much. Let's be honest. It's not a 4-inch height disadvantage, and they practically do have the same reach. I was actually impressed with Cortavios Ramirez in his last few fights. I know he didn't get the decision against Gaston Bolaños, but he still showed decent, technique. He showed decent hooks. He showed decent kicks. He showed decent stuff in there, and even some straight punches. Chang Ho Lee, like the issue with him is he's just not proven enough to me. And I think that if he goes for any grappling exchanges, seeing as Cortevios Ramirez couldn't make the weight, I just think it's going to be hard for him to actually get any successful positions off. So I understand that it's certainly a hard one to pick, and I think that Chang Ho Lee on paper is maybe more technical, but with this weight miss for Cortevios Ramirez, I think that that's going to certainly play into this. When it's not the grappling and when it's just the overall stand up battle, I think that the guy who's going to be able to take more shots, take more punishment, is going to be Cortavious Romeo. So I'm going to have to say a decision for him. And then Joe Anderson Brito versus Pat Sabatini. Now, Pat Sabatini is actually a great underdog here, a really good underdog, because I think that he looked really good against Damon Jackson, getting that submission, getting that locked up really easy. Damon Jackson, I mean Jonathan Pierce. And Jonathan Pierce is actually a decent grappler as well. He was actually kind of making it look easy against Janderson Brito in moments. But the thing is, I feel like Jonathan Pierce, he's actually more willing to engage in such grappling exchanges with Pat Sabatini, whereas Joe Anderson Brito, he likes to stand up. He can engage in certain jiu-jitsu. I mean, he subbed Jonathan Pierce. I was thinking Joe Anderson because Joe Anderson Brito is the guy I'm talking about, but no, Jonathan Pierce, he actually subbed him. Brito did, but the thing is, he doesn't usually go for that. He only goes for it when the opportunity presents itself. And yes, he can find the KO, and I think I'm gonna pick a KO, but I actually don't think it's gonna be as easy as some might suggest, seeing as most people, I'm pretty sure like 80%, 78% are picking for KO for Brito, but I actually don't think it's gonna be quite that easy because the thing is, he does like to go for leg kicks more than a Diego Lopez, than, a Dan Ige, these other guys that have these really, that's what people kind of associate Joe Anderson Brito with, these like heavy loopy shots, guys that keep a high guard. Joe Anderson Brito likes to do leg kicks more, and he also, he likes to measure distance more. He's not, and he also has a really good clinch game. He's not entirely, big, heavy, looping shots. No, but he does kind of have that in his back pocket. He kind of sets things up with the hand fighting with the jabs, and then he comes in with the like right hand, sometimes left, but usually the right overhand, right hook. I'm gonna have to say around 2 KO, but it's not gonna be like a crazy out cold one. It's gonna be um, close to that, but not quite. It's gonna be a good stoppage from the referee, I'm gonna say. And then we have, oh wait, did I pick Sabatini there? Let me just check. Yeah, Brito round two. And then we have Lerone Murphy, the prospect. I don't know who gave him that nickname, but some people were saying his nickname was the prospect. And then Bedtime MMA kept calling him, 30, this dude's calling himself 35 as a, this dude's calling himself a prospect at 35. And that was kind of a funny running joke from him, but he is a prospect. I mean, yeah, he's older than Leon Edwards, even though he's supposed to be a prospect, but, he is a prospect. And I don't think that he's actually going to get to the belt, but he's going to get close, I think. Josh Emmett, he's really good. I've watched some tape on both these guys. Josh Emmett's really good, but Lauren Murphy, aside from the power, the athleticism, I would say that he's way more well-rounded. Maybe Josh Emmett has better takedowns. Maybe it's close though. Um, Lauren Murphy has better jiu-jitsu, I would say, even if that's not saying much because Josh Emmett doesn't have really much jiu-jitsu, but um, Josh Emmett has the power, he has the speed, I would say, if only a little bit, and if only for the first couple rounds. His overhand though, like people talk about the power and people talk about, oh man, you can't make mistakes with him, and that's true, but he's not like this Dan Ige where he keeps a high guard. He makes you think that he's gonna just will to your pressure, just oh keep hitting him like a punching bag, but then he comes in with the right hand out of nowhere, and then he just drops you the loopy right hand. It's tricky with Danny Gay. Josh Emmett sometimes he'll do something similar, but he more so likes to do a Michael Chandler situation where he sets up to the body and then comes upstairs. And even then, we also got to consider that yes he has other tools, but that's his main bread and butter. And we also got to consider with that though, he can land it on guys like Bryce Mitchell on a week's notice and some other guys, but even then, lots of these other guys he's not been able to put away with it. I think that Bryce Mitchell, it was just a perfect shot, and also he doesn't have the best chin. I understand that was full on, a corked from the hip, but also on that topic, it's like Josh Emmett always, almost always keeps it at the his right hand when he corks it up to the top, that overhand right. He almost always does it to the from the hip. It's like it's super telegraphed. Yes, it's fast, but telegraphed, very telegraphed. You always know it's coming. It's just a matter of oh, did I position myself right? In the case of Bryce Mitchell, no, it was a terrible positioning from him. Should have went for a takedown or something. You know that the overhand's his bread and butter. Just do not keep your head high for that. He's not probably not gonna go for an uppercut against you, Bryce Mitchell. Just freaking go for takedowns. What are you doing? Trying to outstrike him. Um, but Laurel Murphy, really solid. He might be able to outstrike Josh Emmett. He has a rangier style. He uses his reach quite well and his height as well. He's not that much taller. We saw in the weigh-ins as evidence, but overall, I think that he even Laurel Murphy I think has the deeper tool bag. Even when it comes to spinning stuff, like we saw against Dan Ige, he was like in the last couple minutes, he was like really going for it. Really like I think he went for like a spinning heel kick or something, and then like a spinning elbow. I might be wrong about one of those, but I know he went for like a spinning thing there, and then he has okay elbows even. People underrate that. People think he just has a 1-2 like a leg 1-2 leg kick like a Leon Edwards type of thing, and then the teep kick. That's all there, but it's also like even more so than that. Like featherweights have a extra on them. They have that extra tool bag than the welterweights, and welterweights have power. They have certain things to look out for. They have that weight, but I think that Laurent Murphy just has so much tools over Josh Emmett here. Josh Emmett, he can resort to wrestling here, offensively in certain rounds to just rack up control time, maybe keep Laurent Murphy guessing so that he can set up the overhand. But I don't see it. I'm gonna have to say a 49-46 for Laurent Murphy. Thank you so much for watching. Mystic Mask of MMA out.